politically motivated bloodshed in DFW as bullets meant for ICE agents hit detained immigrants instead. Here at home, fear and loathing on Houston's bayous, where the only thing certain is the mounting body count. And a giant boon to Harris County's economy, as a pharmaceutical giant chooses Houston for a multi-billion-dollar drug-making plant and the thousands of jobs that go with it. I'm Greg Krugen, and welcome to Watch Your Point, where our panelists call it like they see it. Let's greet them. Starting us off, former Houston City Council member Sue Lovell. Good morning. Next up, Holly Hansen, political reporter for The Texan. In the three-spot, writer and public policy consultant Charles Blaine. Batting cleanup this morning, law enforcement advocate April Aguirre. And closing us out, education and public safety advocate Paul Castro. Let's begin.
And I would argue when we talk to business owners, to community members, they want strong public safety across the board. The other things are nice, but it's time that we make sure that there's pay parity, because if there wasn't, and this didn't happen, we would see a mass exodus, and it would put a tremendous harm on public safety here in Harris County.
And there you have it, Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, the most popular elected official in Harris County, explaining in simple terms why the $100 million investment in pay hikes for peace officers was a practical necessity and never an option. Gonzalez spoke as a bipartisan majority on Commissioners Court pushed through a $2.8 billion spending plan with the raise for deputies and without the pair of tax hikes advocated by Judge Lina Hidalgo and Commissioner Rodney Ellis.
We have balanced the budget, and we have made sure to prioritize the things that residents across Harris County wanted to see prioritized, and it began with public safety.
I've proudly been championing this pay parity because it's the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do, and it's the responsible thing to do.
In typical Hidalgo hysteria fashion, the county judge accused the majority of purposely shortchanging children.
Yeah, they made it a sport to pretty much cut all the youth programs. I don't know why. They just thought it'd be fun to cut all the children's programs.
Panel Hidalgo didn't stop there, accusing fellow commissioners, ironically, of bid rigging and pandering to law enforcement for political support. Holly Hansen, welcome back to the panel. I know you've been watching this pretty closely. Thoughts about this new spending plan?
No, I think it's a pretty good plan. There's never a perfect budget, in my opinion, especially when there's always a room to cut government spending. But it is a win for the residents who are worried about crime and for those patrol officers who will be getting that raise. We do know that a police presence in the community does deter crime, so that is a win. What I don't think any of us predicted perhaps 2 or 3 years ago is that the heavy contention on the Commissioners Court would be between Democrats. It would be between Lina Hidalgo and Commissioners Garcia and Briones. And we did see Hidalgo lobbing some very aggressive insults at her fellow commissioners. But even in the end, as she made some last-ditch efforts to thwart this pay increase for law enforcement, she couldn't even get a second on those motions from Commissioner Rodney Ellis, who has typically been her biggest supporter. So it was a very interesting, very contentious process this year, and made a lot of fodder for those of us who covered Commissioners Court. But I think taxpayers would like to see a little more discipline in their governments.
All right, Charles, a small, perhaps, baby step towards fiscal redemption for Briones and Garcia?
I don't know about redemption, but maybe like a wink and a nod, a fiscal wink and a nod. I think it's good what they did. Now, it's not structurally balanced, because next year we're going to have to go through this again when they start to see expenses come in, and revenues are certainly not going to outpace expenses. And so we're going to see this again. Now, are they going to hold steady to their support for law enforcement after a re-election as they did before? I don't know. I think we've seen this about face because we are entering this election cycle, and I don't believe personally that they're going to hold hold up to that. The one thing I do think is really interesting that was baked into this was the raises for the elected constables. I think, we all, this panel is all very friendly with the elected constables, but I do think that $260,000 is a lot of money when you're talking about how little money the county has. And you're also throwing out the opportunity or the possibility of a tax increase, which they didn't do, but that's a lot of money especially for 8 individuals who represent a wide range of things. So we're talking about, the largest jurisdiction being 1.3 million people, the smallest being 130,000, the smallest footprint being 30 square miles, the largest being like 300 square miles. To give them all $260,000 is a significant increase.
Our good friend Sue Lovell coined the phrase AI, amateur and immature, for our county judge. And she was consistent. It was kind of a barrage of cackling and the sky is falling throughout the day. I don't think she served herself well.
Well, Lena Hidalgo, quack, quack. I mean, lame duck. She's, whatever she's going to do now, it's, there's a time limit on that. She's going to be gone. Look, the minute the HPD got their raises, started a domino effect that was going to go all the way through the county, all the way to the constables. So what you have to decide as an elected official is, are we not going to give you the raises? And so you're going to jump over to where somebody's paying really good money, but you're going to have to then hire and train new officers and everything that goes with it, or are you just going to go ahead and raise them all along the line? And then now I think the thing is, you say, okay, this is it for a while, but what is it you're expecting out of those raises? I mean, that's what I didn't hear. Like, we want more of our investigations. What is it they want other than we don't want you to leave and we have to replace you?
Yeah, there were lots of officers that came to Commissioner's Court expressing their support and their gratitude and suggesting that they don't have to work 2, 3, sometimes 4 jobs to make ends meet. That will be seen in their performance. Paul, thoughts here?
Yeah, so first of all, Lena accusing people of playing politics is interesting because that is the job. You're a politician and you should know how to play politics. You need to know how to count to 3. And the fact that she couldn't do that demonstrates why it's really wise that she's stepping aside. And I'm with Sue on this, and that is, I think it's important for the public to hold law enforcement, the sheriffs and the constables for crime clearance rates. I think it's super important for us to say, well, what resources do you need? We want to increase the number of crimes resolved by 10%, and let's start tracking that at Commissioner's Court. I think the public is saying we value our law enforcement officials, we value the systems that they've put into place, and we want this to turn out, kind of like we do with teachers. People like teachers generally, and the idea is, and we want reading scores to go up and math scores to go up. The same type of outcomes is what we're looking for as taxpayers.
Yeah, and guess what? There's going to be more money in the Aguirre household. Save that thought. All right, still to come. Shots fired in political anger hit immigrant detainees in Dallas and not the ICE agents they were clearly intended for. But up next, the race to replace Harris County's lame duck chief executive is underway on both sides of the political aisle.
I'm ready to serve. I'm ready to lead this county back to financial stability and get us on the right track.
A familiar face in Houston politics back in the fray, Republican Orlando Sanchez formally announcing a bid for Harris County judge. That development on the very same day, top GOP contender Marty Langton picked up a huge endorsement from the Harris County Deputies Association. Panel, when you add the deputies that to his previously announced backing from the Houston Police Officers Union, Langton can pretty much clearly claim across the board support from law enforcement. All right, April, how do you see this thing unfolding here?
Thing is, Marty is a known face in the law enforcement community. He has shown that he really knows how to put up a fight. He did it with Sylvester Turner. It was good. And I think that as county judge, he would really serve the position well, specifically coming into somebody like Lena, who's just a little, detrimental. But I think Marty's really strong, and he's going to be something really good, and I back him.
Yeah, Charles, you are in touch with the base of the Republican Party. This is a Republican primary. Orlando has long ties there. Do you think they will serve him well in a head-to-head primary?
I mean, sure, I think so, but how well, who knows, really, and I think it's interesting because the union aspect of this is unique to a local Republican primary. We really haven't had that conversation before. Candidates have always sought union endorsements, but to have a union leader running in the Republican primary, I think makes it really interesting. Now, I'm curious to see how that plays. I've spoken to a lot of activists who are a little hesitant and reluctant. I mean, the state party platform still has strict restrictions and pursues more restrictions on public sector unions, but then some people see it, like April just explained, from a public safety perspective, and public safety unions have often been viewed differently than other public sector unions. So it's going to make for an interesting conversation. Yeah,
but the Republican Party has actively gone after union support and touted union support in the last general election with the president trotting out lots of union guys.
As of August, Trump cut 500,000 federal workers' collective bargaining rights. He's not pursuing union policy. He got their endorsement during the election because he needed labor, but he's not pursuing their policy.
Jump in here, Holly.
Okay. Well, I think we have, three Republican candidates at this point, Mayor Lisa Dudd of Piney Point, along with Sanchez and Langton. The dynamic has changed now, though, since Lena Hidalgo is not running. So they're not running against a very unpopular incumbent. And for each of these candidates, they're going to have to figure out what is their path to victory in a purple county. We do know Republicans can win countywide races. We saw that last year when we had some judges win those seats from the Republican Party, but that it's not a clear pathway. And they really need to think about how they're going to win over Republican primary voters with a message that will not alienate the independents and moderates that they do need to win an election in Harris County.
So quickly, you know Marty pretty well. You knew Orlando.
Yeah, both of them. I'm not surprised that Marty reached across and got that endorsement. Why he's been one of the leaders of one of the largest unions in the nation, actually. He's always been willing to reach across the aisle, especially in public safety. And usually firefighters and police officers don't really get along. But in this case, they're banding together to make sure that they have good leadership. So it's better to have them with you than against you. So I thought it was a very smart move.
All right, we're going to have to watch this one closely. Should be pretty interesting. When we come back, accountability for the death of an innocent 9-year-old and a plea for forgiveness from the man who took a little girl's life.
pray and I ask God for forgiveness all the time. And I can't get past me not asking them to forgive me for my mistakes that I made that night, my decisions that I made. I just want to ask them, can they find it deep in their heart to forgive me for my actions?
More than 3 years ago, Tony Earl's decision was to shoot randomly and mistakenly into a truck he believed was driven by a thief who just robbed him at gunpoint. He was wrong, dead wrong. And 9-year-old Arlene Alvarez lost her life as the result. This week, a jury found Tony Earls guilty of manslaughter, and a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison quickly followed. To call this senseless loss life-shattering is insufficient. As my friend Paul Castro has shared, this degree of agony defies the capacity of mere words to sufficiently express. And so we are left with silence where a child's voice should be, with only grief to fill that gap. Panel, as you all know, Arlene was the beloved niece of our friend April Aguirre, who led her family in what proved a relentless battle for accountability. April, how you doing?
We feel so much better, and I can say to everybody that Arlene is finally resting in peace. For 3.5 years, we have fought a system that did not want to pursue charges against a man who intentionally, repeatedly, and continuously shot into a moving vehicle when a robbery was over. There was a misconception of the robbery continuing to take place versus the facts. The robbery suspect was over 50 yards away, gone, completely off the premises. And this man decided to shoot into our vehicle. This is the first time that we hear an apology from him. Yeah, and for us, unfortunately, we can't accept it, because for a year when we were going to court, the same man would look at us with anger and disgust. So it was a very different contrast from the man we saw on the stand. So, and then on top of that, after he killed Arlene, he continued to be a violent individual. He pointed, as you saw in the video, a gun to his stepson's face. So he learned nothing from killing Arlene. It was easy for us to want to continue to pursue justice for her, because at the end of the day, every bullet that is shot out of a gun, somebody needs to be held responsible for that bullet. And Arlene didn't deserve to be killed that night. I often struggle with if she suffered, if she knew that we were there with her. For her to not be safe on her way home, on her way to dinner, from home, within reach of her parents' arms, they could have turned around and touched her, and she wasn't safe. There was no way we were gonna let up. But to all the victims in Harris County, which there is many, my message is don't give up. Show up scared, show up unprepared, show up not knowing what to do, but show up because you know that that's the right thing to do. We forced the arm to a system that didn't work for Arlene. I wonder what would have happened if Wendy or Armando, the adults in the vehicle, would have been shot that night. Nobody would have cared, even when there was a 9-year-old child. But I feel like if the system doesn't work for a child, then who does it work for? Now we have 20 years of peace, and in this process, we were not walked through the criminal justice system, we were dragged. But I am grateful that we fell through every crack, because we plan to fill that crack now. And we have a busy legislative session on the 90th, and we're already planning. One of the rights that we want to fight for is criminals have something called privileged conversations with their attorneys. Crime victims do not. Every single message that we wrote to our prosecutor are publicly available. Even in our darkest days, even days that were hard, they're out there, and it's not fair. Also, we were silenced. We were giving a faulty subpoena to not be able to stand in trial, even though we knew they were never going to put us on the stand. So now there's things that we have to fix in the system to ensure that this doesn't happen to another family. But also, Sean Tier is creating something called the call-out team, where they're now sending prosecutors to scenes, which is great, because the first go, our prosecutors didn't even once make it to the scene before presenting a grand jury presentation that ultimately ended in a no bill.
Paul, you've been through this. We're going to talk in overtime. It took 3.5 years for this family to get justice, and that's a problem. So we're going to talk about it in overtime. Up next, nothing certain but the body count. Anxiety rising as more dead folks are found floating in Houston bayous.
We do not have any evidence that there is a serial killer loose in Houston, Texas. Let me say that again. There is no evidence that there is a serial killer loose on the streets of Houston. If there was, you would hear it from me first.
Mayor John Whitmire firmly responding to growing anxiety over dead bodies pulled from our city's bayous. 15 so far this year, 6 in the past 2 weeks. The latest discovered early Friday morning. Whitmire calling on the media and the general public to refrain from wild speculation. Panel, with precious little information relief thus far, that's a big ask from the mayor. Charles, you're following this?
Yeah, and it is a big ask because, I mean, you see all of this coming out and coming into the news, and as humans, you want to make connections and try to understand what's going on. And I went and watched the press conference, and I don't know that we were ready for that press conference. We need more information. If you're going to give us that press conference, there's still so many questions to be answered, like the who, what, when, where, and why. Like, who are these individuals? We still don't know everyone. What happened to them? When did it happen? Why did it happen? Where did it take place? Why are we suddenly finding all of these bodies in a 2-week time span? The 15 or 16 have been found over the year, but in the past 2 weeks there have been 6 or 7, so why suddenly? And so those big questions are still left outstanding, which then leads to people asking more questions. And I think that if, we got some explanation about it, could be potentially homeless individuals and this and that, but I think there are too many outstanding questions to have come out with a press conference because now people are left with more questions than answers.
Sue, thus far, John Whitmire has proven himself worthy of our trust. I mean, what's your advice to him? Frankly, I bet you've already given it to him.
I haven't, but, Charles is right. And when you do forensics and you do, all that investigation, it takes a long time to gather all that information, put it together. And it's very difficult. So we're used to getting answers to questions very quickly. I think that the mayor just stepped out because this thing was starting to roll along and take on, a life of its own. To just say, look, we don't know what we don't know, but we're pretty sure we don't have a serial killer. But we do have a lot of bodies that we found in the bayou, but we don't know where they came from or what happened to them. And let us go ahead and do our investigation, and then we can give you more information.
Yeah, to her credit, our good friend Tamara Bell, longtime super neighborhood leader, is being a voice for those communities, saying we got questions, we got concerns. Paul, as you watch this unfold, have you developed any thoughts? What's your point?
I think it's unfortunate that so many people are dying. I mean, what we don't know is, are these drug overdoses? Are these suicides? Some of them might be foul play, but apparently a pattern hasn't been established. I think the concerning thing is it does impact the way people feel about their personal safety as they walk through the city. As it is, downtown's already pretty dead at night and on the weekends. And I think the mayor's trying to make sure that doesn't become a deeper problem and that people are afraid to walk around when there may not be a pattern. But it would be great if they could actually come up with some answers and put people's minds at rest.
Okay, April, I get it. I know you have some thoughts here.
So the medical examiner's office takes weeks. So we had a lot of bodies in 1 week's time when we did this press conference. We don't have answers yet. So we got to let the medical examiner's office give us a cause of death first for these individuals. Also, I just want to say that World Star Hip Hop is where this is really taking off. They have about 2 million likes and multiple views, and they are really highlighting Houston and saying, okay, we got another body, guys. Like, they're keeping count, and people from all over the country are engaging on this theory. And, then they even put John up, and they're like, when they say it's not, it is.
Look, I'm told that the forensic work is much more difficult in waterlogged bodies. So
yes.
let's all trust that our law enforcement is doing the right thing here.
Yep.
Okay. Still ahead, gunfire in Dallas as a politically motivated sniper assaults ICE agents, spilling immigrant blood in the process.
This is the third shooting in Texas directed at ICE or CBP. This must stop.
This week, more politically motivated violence, this time here in the Lone Star State, where a sniper identified as 29-year-old Joshua Yan opened fire on a regional ICE facility in North Texas.
He called the ICE employees people showing up to collect a dirty paycheck. He hoped his actions would terrorize ICE employees and interfere with their work, which he called human trafficking.
John's barrage of fire, which authorities described as indiscriminate, hit no ICE agents but did strike 3 immigrant detainees, one of whom died. Panel, the gunman took his own life, leaving behind unspent cartridges inscribed with the phrase anti-ICE, quite likely a copycat practice inspired by Charlie Kirk's assailant and Luigi Mangione, who stalked and murdered United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Your thoughts here, Paul?
Yeah, so first of all, condolences to the families. I can understand how this is very upsetting to the law enforcement community. It's horrific. I think what we see, so as a school person, schools now have to have body armor in every school building. You have to have a ballistic-proof shield in every school building. You have to have trained and armed law enforcement, or I was one of those people when I worked at my former school. I carried a 9mm on my ankle every day. This is a true fact that's happening. So this is not just ICE. Like, every school is on alert. Public people are on alert. What we have is we have an issue where we have incels, people who are disengaged from their communities, who are depressed, upset, and angry. They're almost all males. They're almost all in kind of the same age range, and they all have problems. And how they decide to act out those problems is against authority. So in some cases that's school, in some cases that's law enforcement, in some cases it's against a family member or themselves. And that's the issue that we should be addressing, because this person was obviously very mentally disturbed and carried out something terribly and had a consequence that wasn't the people he was aiming at. That's irrelevant. Dead is dead, right? But what we need to start thinking about is what can we do as a community to start addressing these issues, because these issues are real and they have consequences that are permanent and destructive.
Holly, we've been living with the reality of not if but when, and it seems to have escalated.
Yes, and we certainly are seeing, this growing violence and this growing tendency to lash out at people we perceive as evil or political enemies, with the Charlie Kirk assassination. And there is this special animus towards ICE right now. I think it was Friday, the Justice Department announced indictments of some individuals who were already out on bond following some ICE agents home and live streaming and, just inviting people to enact violence against them. It's a big concern, and I think Paul's right. We do need to look at how we handle people who clearly have some mental health issues, but not all of these people would show up as having mental health issues. They may be people who are very active politically. Are we going to go and pursue everyone who makes a political statement? No, we can't do that, but we do need to be very careful about when there are clear signs of mental illness, how do we address that? And, we've taken it to be compassionate to keep these people free in society. Sometimes they need to be removed from the population. They need special treatment, and we need to rethink how we're handling those cases. I did want to jump back really quickly on the conviction in Arlene's murder. I think that's really important to send a signal to responsible gun owners to be responsible. We need to know that if we're going to continue to enjoy Second Amendment rights, we cannot behave recklessly. And we also need to crack down on people we know have been reckless instead of giving them PR bonds for having unlicensed weapons or being a felon in possession.
Quickly back on topic.
Sorry.
The president has declared Antifa a terrorist organization. Does that aggravate the situation? And what is Antifa, Charles?
I mean, I can't answer that precisely. But I think that the thing is, was it aggravated? Sure, people who are involved in that group are going to be more aggravated, but I think it also probably gives the government more tools to then pursue these individuals. But like Holly was just alluding to, that you can use these tools and you can do monitoring and things like that, but you quickly get into an area, and I know this isn't what you were saying, but kind of where you're in like that red flag territory where somebody might say something online that they may not mean, but then it might put them in a system that then prevents them from exercising a right here or there. And I think to Paul's point too, it goes the same with the incel movement. I mean, you see it very actively in these online communities, and it's increasingly coming from online communities to actual in real life communities, people taking, following copycats and doing these things. And I think it's largely, like you said, young men who are disengaged from society, often civically disengaged, but very frustrated by the process, and often think that the world is against them when it's really them it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because they're removing themselves from the process. And so how do you target those young men, I think, is the big question.
Okay, grounds for further discussion in overtime. Still to come, a multi-billion-dollar boost to the Houston economy guaranteed as a drug-making giant sets up shop in the Bayou City. But up next, the return of now controversial comedian Jimmy Kimmel and his bid to make amends for commentary much of the country found offensive.
I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human, and that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man.
Jimmy Kimmel returned to his ABC broadcast 6 days after comments he made in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, which sparked outrage, resulting in the program's suspension. During his heavily viewed return monologue, the comedian spoke out against government interference with freedom of speech while also offering this homage to Charlie Kirk's wife.
On Sunday, Erica Kirk forgave the man who shot her husband. She forgave him. That is an example we should follow. A selfless act of grace, forgiveness from a grieving widow. It touched me deeply.
All right, panel, I'm eager to hear your thoughts. April.
So I'm going to tell you that Charlie would have wanted this. He was a champion of free speech. His whole entire platform was giving a voice to people that he disagreed with. And, you know, South Park took down an episode they made of him, and Charlie's family came out and said, Charlie would have wanted it up, so please put it back. He respected comedy's boundaries and even people that disagreed with him. So I think that it was good to bring back Kimmel, but I also believe that before we have a political view, we need to be human first.
All right, Holly, what kind of reaction did you have as a person, and what are you hearing from others who listen to this?
Yeah, I think that was a very gracious return to the air. He did a pretty good job there. A lot of us had a lot of concerns about the way it was handled in the aftermath of his comments, which were inappropriate and premature based on the evidence that we had, very irresponsible. You know, I agree. Charlie Kirk was an advocate for free speech. We all here like to talk to people we don't necessarily agree with on policy. We need to let people say what they're going to say. And, you know, if Kimmel's show isn't doing well, then it's up to the decision of the private company whether or not they're going to take him on or off the air. I am concerned about government kind of hinting at threats and things like that. That's not the place of government, and we should absolutely support these free speech rights.
30 seconds, Sue.
Trump saw an opening. He doesn't like Jimmy Kimmel, and he took it. You know, and he used his power, you know, to try and take him out. The interesting thing is, I guess I heard through this week, the other two companies that had not aired him put him back on the show. So, you know, we know the president likes, you know, to go after people that he doesn't like, and he has the power to do so, and he's not afraid to use it. And he used it, you know, and then he moved on. with this wake of a whole bunch of issues that were left, but they've gotten resolved. And Jimmy Kimmel came on; he was very gracious, and you know, it is frightening, you know, that you can't say things that, you know, freedom of speech.
Paul.
There were two parts of the offending comment. The first was what everyone's talked about. The second one was he showed a clip of reporters saying, how are you doing with grieving your friend Charlie Kirk? And he said, oh, I'm doing pretty good. And have you looked over there and seen the build out of the ballroom? And then everyone laughed. And I think that was the part that was probably very offensive towards Trump, because it showed him in, you know, just free form and essentially not making a lot about the grieving of his friend. Free speech is really important in our community. I just recently reread, I recommend others to do it, Frederick Douglass's 1860 piece to Boston about free speech. Reread it twice this weekend. It's worthy of revisiting.
All right. Charles, we're going to hear from you on this in overtime. Up next, closing the deal on a corporate courtship and a huge payoff for the Houston economy. Eli Lilly, welcome to the Lone Star State.
Texas offered speed and scale, from blueprint to validation to production of medicines. This region offers top-notch talent, rooted in a history in the energy, aerospace, and medical industries.
Folks, that's Dave Ricks, Chief Executive of drug-making giant Eli Lilly, and he's not just blowing smoke. On the contrary, the pharmaceutical behemoth has chosen northeast Houston as the site of a $6.5 billion manufacturing facility, the consummation of a corporate courtship with Governor Greg Abbott in the role of suitor.
We did it for Elon Musk. We're doing it for Eli Lilly, but we do it for every business that either exists here, grows here, or moves here, because Texas is the best state in America for doing business.
Panel, the governor looking to make Texas a safe and profitable harbor for companies looking to reshore manufacturing in the Trump economy. The cash carrot here, $150 million worth of state economic development grants to close the deal. Thoughts, Charles Blaine?
Well, we're the best state for business. Why do we have to pay them to come? Shouldn't they want to come by themselves? But here's the thing. I think it's really
could have been the 300 competitors trying to get the same plant.
To 300 competitors that Texas is not suing. So here's the other thing. This is the difference between, this is why it's like the elite versus the rest of us. Texas is suing Eli Lilly over fraud and kickback allegations, saying that they gave incentives, illegal incentives to nurses and other medical providers for like GLP-1 medication. So we're in this massive lawsuit saying that they racked up millions of dollars in Medicare fraud, but now we're giving them millions of dollars to move here, and taxpayers are paying for both.
Sounds like you're arguing to like send Eli Lilly to New Jersey, your old boyhood home, or your parents' home in South Carolina. What are you doing? I mean, some jobs.
We're literally suing them for fraud and kickback and Medicare fraud, and then we're giving them millions of dollars to move here to allegedly create permanent jobs, which these economic projections never actually materialize. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Okay. Holly, your thoughts here.
Well, I do think it's a boon for Houston. Eli Lilly is one of the top 5 pharmaceutical manufacturers in the world, and they're not just opening this facility in Houston, they're also building in Virginia and North Carolina. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the whole tariff threat thing, but there was Trump's tariff threat to impose 100% tariffs on these pharmaceuticals coming into the country. But there was a little note there that if you were in the progress of opening a facility stateside, you would be exempt from those tariffs. So that also motivated this company to look at building these facilities in the United States, which is a win because in the COVID pandemic, we had supply chain issues in getting drugs from overseas. This does bring this manufacturing back to the United States, and is a win for Americans who need pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, Paul, it's a national security component. I mean, you know, if we could all agree on anything, we needed to have all our chips made and the majority of our pharmaceuticals made. Agreed?
Yeah, agreed. And part of the deal was that Eli Lilly would be working with local universities and colleges, ramping up their programs and ensuring that what kids are learning when they're in college would transfer to these high-tech jobs. Looking back at the Hyundai plant that was invaded back, by ICE officials, part of the reason that they were invaded is because they were bringing in all these South Korean engineers and scientists to build the plant. Why? Because local people can't fill those jobs, aren't skilled enough to do that. We should be ramping up and taking advantage of partnerships where industry can align with public and private schools and make sure that young people are being trained in the ways that they need to learn so they can be employed at high wages.
Yeah, we should all be happy we're not becoming the Rust Belt. People are actually moving here. Up next, she's Republican, she's Latina, and she's looking to change the direction of leadership for the folks of Texas 18. In exactly 36 days, voters in our state's 18th congressional district will choose a candidate to represent them in the nation's capital. Among the top contenders in this traditionally Democratic district is Republican Carmen Maria Montiel, a proud immigrant who says voters in the 18th are increasingly Latino, increasingly conservative, and hungry for a different brand of leadership.
Latinos were conservative. Our values are the values of our founding fathers, which is faith, family, economic opportunities, and love for country. And I believe this district and this city desperately need a representation like that. We have a lot of poverty. We have a hard time getting access to health care. We have a cancer cluster in the Fifth Ward in Kashmir Garden. The city, have a drainage problem that is caused, floating all the time. And the money is there. We have opportunity zones in the district that are there to bring investors. Investors bring jobs, jobs bring housing, housing improve education. So those are the main needs. And what happened is, how is it that when we have the most important, biggest, best medical center in the world, like we have in Houston, our people in the district have a hard time to access health care when there are federal programs in place already that can be provided for our people at no extra cost. There has been a lot of negligence in this district for over 30 years, and sadly, our people keep on voting for the same people. The Democrats wrongfully think that we immigrants are pro-illegal immigration. And they say, oh, the Latinos are gonna get on board on here. No, this is the first thing that we Latinos are against it. We want people to come to this country the same way we did, legally.
Montiel has consistently polled in the top 3 in a bipartisan race for a full third of the Texas 18 electorate. It's pretty much undecided. What do you think? What do you think, April Aguirre?
I like her, right? She has a lot of sass, and she's definitely conservative. However, I just don't think it is possible for a Republican to win the 18th, not this go around. Coming in and taking Sheila's seat and then Sylvester Turner, I really feel like it's going to be between Menifee, and I think it's going to go to Menifee. I don't think that she stands a chance.
Quick thoughts.
Yeah, I think the chance she stands is she's female, she has a Hispanic name. In the 18th, there's a possibility that people are just going to pick a name and not a person, and if so, she could get elected.
All right, this is going to end up in a runoff, Holly.
It could end up, she could end up in a runoff, a slight chance. But, even in an unwinnable district for a Republican, sometimes it's just beneficial for a candidate to get out there and get some messaging. Her messaging there in the interview with you was very good, talking about the issues in the district and asking what has the Democratic representation been able to do for the district, and why are they struggling with the same issues. So kudos to her for getting out there and getting that messaging and trying to change the narrative a little bit.
Real quickly.
Well, at this point, the polling shows that Yolanda Jones is leading that race. But if the Democrats split out and the Republicans go out and vote, then she could very easily be in a runoff with this woman.
Charles, final.
Yeah, I mean, I think it dovetails nicely with the open city council seat. So like Holly was saying, having a Republican there also then generates Republican interest to come out and vote, and so they might be paying attention to that as well, although no one's paying attention to that open city council seat.
When are we ever going to see Latinos vote in their numbers? Because we're talking about close to half of the district out there.
So this is the problem. We are raised by immigrant parents who don't vote because they can't vote, so we're not taught to vote. So we only vote when things get really bad.
All right, we're going to keep an eye on it. Someday that may change.
That's right.
And Texas will change right with it. All right, still to come, he's traveled where very few have gone before, but these days, former astronaut Terry Virts is looking to splash down into a seat representing Texas in the U.S. Senate. On tonight's edition of Texas, The Issue Is, airing at 9:45, right here on Fox 26. We're hearing from former astronaut and Democrat for U.S. Senate, Terry Virts.
Look, we need to have no illegal immigration, period. But we need to have a lot more legal immigration. And having $100,000 visas is insane. It's going to hurt. It's just going to raise prices. It's another one of the many things that Trump is doing to raise our prices.
And there's more at 10 p.m. Catch my new show, Red, White, and Brews, where tonight I'm sharing a beverage and a conversation with iconic trial lawyer, entrepreneur, and political player, Tony Busby. All right, guys, have y'all seen Red, White, and Brews?
Yes.
It's good.
Paul's been on.
I saw 15 minutes of it, but it was too late, so I had to go to bed.
All right.
It's after my bedtime.
With brew or
You
without
can
brew?
tape it and watch it.
Yeah, Terry Virts, outside candidate, nice resume.
Great resume. Yeah.
You know, and there's no real front runner other than Allred over there. You know, I guess we're talking about Tallarico. But, you know, if he gets on a debate stage, he could get some attention. You think, Paul?
Yeah, I think so. Tallarico is, I think, at 8% right now, and he's an empty suit. So hopefully something interesting will happen.
Charles, you think?
You said he was an astronaut, Terry Virts?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's probably got a better chance of going back to space than he does going, yes.
Oh, ouch, ouch, ouch.
But I mean, truly, for the first Democrat to win since, what, the 90s, I don't think that's, it's going to have to be someone high profile.
Yeah, look, he's got he's got, and I said it today in Texas, The Issue Is, he's first got to get people to know who the heck he is and then to check out what he's all about. Agreed?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, name recognition carries a long way, but I kind of have to agree with Charles. You know, he doesn't have much of a chance. It depends on who the Republican nominee is, too.
Right. Thoughts here, Sue?
Hey, he does have a very good resume. Anybody that's willing to, to go into outer space and to serve their nation. And he also went to Harvard. I think got a degree in government affairs. So, he.
The smartest person doesn't always
Thanks to this week's panel, and thank you for joining us. The conversation continues on a national level next on Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream. More importantly, we'll keep talking here with Watch Your Point Overtime, streaming live on fox26houston.com and on our free Fox Local app for your phone or smart TV. From all of us here, have a safe and healthy week.